Hello, Lorraine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great, great. It's wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for
Thank you.
agreeing to join us. And
No problem.
we've only met relatively recently,
Yeah.
but we've already done so much. It's like it feels like I know you for at least a year now.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And you have been very busy, and you have some exciting projects, which I hope we're going to get a chance to talk about in this very short interview
Yeah.
of hospitality stories. The waves are from Eastbourne. Yeah.
Oh,
uh,
definitely.
we are going through some very interesting times, very stormy waters, and we're navigating them.
Absolutely.
And we're hoping that through your career history and your thoughts and your wisdom, uh, give some advice to hospitality students and more. We don't know what will happen with this interview, so I'm pretty sure everybody's wants to know a little bit about your hospitality career history, really, how it all started and how it evolved. So over to you.
Yeah. So I got into hospitality straight out of university. So I actually studied a degree in logistics,
Wow.
which was boring. However, I found my way into the supply chain of a really sizable pub company. And so my role actually started in sort of supply chain planning. I worked really closely with the buyers, liked the look of that. And from then onwards, I grew my procurement career with relatively large companies. So Spirit Group, who had 600 pubs at the time, they now have been acquired by Green King, Elio Contract Caterer, and then moved to the sort of smaller fast casual TGI Fridays. And then most recently, I've worked within the procurement. I was a procurement leader in the fine and dining space. So I was a procurement director for the Gordon Ramsay Group for almost 3 years. And most recently, I was the head of procurement for Corbin and King for just over 18 months.
Are we
So go on, sorry.
are we allowed to talk about Gordon? Have you have you met him? Is he what do
Yes,
you?
I have. I've met him a few times. I mean, he's a chairman, but has an active role in the business. And I was there over 2 years, and every time I met him, I would still just look and think, I'm talking to Gordon Ramsay, because I was a big fan before I joined. I followed his career since I was in my early 20s, and so he's got a really distinctive voice.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was a great experience. Learned tons.
I always
Um,
suspected. I always suspected that he puts on this persona for his shows, which hasn't done a great justice to hospitality in some cases, because parents
yeah,
get scared to send their kids to,
yeah,
they see what is good TV is not good culture.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
he like that in real life, or is he actually more mellow?
He's not. I mean, he's obviously older. He no longer works in a high pressured kitchen himself. He's in a different place of life, and I think he's probably a good example of someone that perhaps started one way and evolved and grew as we all do. So he's a really nice person. But I have no doubt, and I don't know it for sure because I wasn't there, but I have no doubt that the character that we see on television is
Yeah,
probably based on potentially who he was.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perhaps.
But back to you, really, because this is about your story, and the interesting thing, and why I really wanted you here to talk to my students and the students of other colleagues. This is free resource for anybody interested. Is really because of your career in a sector that not many talk about, and this is part of the essence or the idea behind hospitality stories. Is we try to capture as many
Yeah.
sectors, and I mean, what was the degree? Was it just BSc in logistics or?
It didn't encompass procurement specifically, but there was a lot of supply chain planning, financial accounting. It was a business management degree
Right.
with layers of supply chain, logistics, transport management within that. And so that served me actually because, since I've been responsible for leading teams, my
Right.
remit has always been procurement and supply chain. And so,
What
yeah, go on,
what
sorry.
what triggered you though? Because you could have gone into supply chain of any sector. What triggered you to choose? It feels like when I look at your background, it feels like you had an idea that you wanted to work for hospitality. Or am I wrong?
You're wrong. Yeah. So, I mean, I've always been a big foodie, passionate about food, always loved food. And getting a job in a pub company, it was purely looking for the right role and not necessarily an occupation. However, I found myself in a place where I could learn about food and drink for a living without being a chef.
Right.
And I remember I was about 22, 23 at the time. I was going to loads of industry dues, eating a lot for free or tastings. And I was just like, I've arrived home, like I'm where I need to be.
So,
And so since joining the sector, I did take almost 2 years out in a buying role for a automation and engineering company, Schneider Electric.
yeah,
And it was working for an amazing team, absolutely amazing French-owned business, great culture, but I missed food.
yeah,
And I remember going to an exhibition. At the time, one of my responsibilities was waste disposal. And it's something that I'm responsible within hospitality too, but it's one of a few. But waste disposal, I went to an exhibition and I watched a piece of equipment compact cardboard. And it was at that point I thought I want to get back to hospitality, because what can compare to going to an exhibition, tasting food, meeting people, having drinks? Like, who wants to watch cardboard being
yeah.
compacted or cardboard being baled? Even it was a baler,
Oh gosh.
and that was a real defining moment for me. In that I need to get back to the sector that I really enjoy.
I mean that technology is important too, but
It
it
is
is boring as and
absolutely.
I mean that was already a memorable moment, because I was going to ask you about a memorable moment in your career in hospitality. Can you think of any funny moments or
I
something
have.
that you say that's the moment that I remember?
Well, I've got a funny one actually. So when I talk about the first company I worked for, it was a company called Punch Supply Company, joint venture between Punch Pubs and the Spirit Group. And I went along to my first food tasting. Yeah. And in hindsight, I didn't really need to be there, but I had a good relationship with the development chef at the time, Bob, and the senior buyers. So I came along to the meeting. And as I say, I thought, I've arrived in heaven. So I tucked into the food, and I remember Bob stopping and saying, Lorraine, this is a tasting, not a buffet. And I was horrified. I was embarrassed, but that has stuck with me. I mean, this was like almost 20 years ago. And I look back and think, obviously, I was so happy to be there. And in hindsight, it's not the kind of food I even eat now, but I was happy to be there. Relatively nice food. We got to eat, and I tucked in as a 23-year-old. So that really stuck with me. It was funny. Many probably would have been more embarrassed, but I laughed as well. So
That's a great story. That's a good one. But also a reminder that when you look at packages, when you work in the industry, I remember quite a lot of perks in the industry that not many industries have. And food certainly is one of them, and good food. Not.
definitely is. It definitely is.
Um, so I know that you've been working on a major project,
Hmm.
which and you got quite a big number. You got quite a big team now behind you, and it's all about a term that. And I want to ask you also about the term, and I want you, because we've discussed this, and I want you to give us your thoughts
Yeah.
about the term BAME and
Yeah.
and BAME in hospitality, the project, and
Yeah.
what is all that about?
Yeah. So, Bayman Hospitality is a social enterprise, strong not-for-profit organisation, and it's founded with a mission to drive education, to amplify voices, to build a community, and ultimately to accelerate racial equality within the hospitality sector. And so, having been on the inside, I've worked within the sector for 18 years, and throughout my career, I have never either been a part of or witnessed a truly diverse leadership team in any hospitality business. And the reason why that is really important to point out is because the hospitality sector is the second largest employer of people from Asian backgrounds and the third largest employer for people who are Black.
Yeah.
So huge employer, but not visible in leadership or around the boardroom table. And I myself, progressed to exec level leadership roles, and I've never been in boardrooms with anyone else
Mm.
that is of a different ethnicity, and that's a problem.
Do you
And
think,
I feel, go on, sorry.
do you think it's a UK specific issue, or
No, I mean, systemic inequality is a global problem, and it exists, you know, in a lot of the Western world. But there are problems all over the world in terms of systemic inequality. I mean, I used to work for a Kuwaiti business and had a great time there again. I used to travel an awful lot. But what I saw when I went to the Middle East is this whole caste system of, you know, people that were Indian or Filipino
Mm.
were seen as, you know, almost less than human. You know, I witnessed an Indian man pulling a forklift instead of obviously using a vehicle. And so it absolutely exists everywhere in the world. But I'm at a point in my life where I feel really compelled to do something about it.
Mm.
And the way we do something about it is we work with organizations, actually. Those organizations that are keen to drive change, we support them in their journey. So we provide them with training, we conduct business audits, help them create inclusive strategies, and act as an advisor as well. We have a lot of learning and development initiatives in the works. The first has been a mentorship scheme, which has been launched. And then we also host events. So something that's really key and important is access to career role models. And I personally had some really great role models in my career, but none of them were remotely anything like me. Actually, they were white males, and that they've been great and champions of my career.
Can you?
But seeing,
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
oh, it's okay. I was going to say, seeing role models that look like you is really important.
I was going to ask you about role models, and also I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit more about the mentorship scheme you just mentioned. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So the mentorship scheme is called Elevate. It's a 6-month mentorship scheme, and we basically have a platform where our mentors, mentees complete a survey. They're matched, and then we use the platform that we have as a way for our mentors and mentees to communicate. Because of COVID, it has been all virtual. We hope in the new world, that when we return back to normal, that it will be in person. But we will have 4 intakes a year. And the first kind of intake of mentees was quite broad in terms of different types of occupations and different career levels, but we're really going to get focused on the remaining intakes just so that we're able to match the appropriate mentee with the appropriate mentor.
And I know you alluded, and I don't want to push you too much about the actual term.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about this label of that's been used by different governmental agencies?
I guess, you know, as a Black woman born and raised in the UK, I recognise how problematic BAME has been as a term. It's been weaponised ultimately, where, you know, when people have been asked questions about diversity, they say we've got 12% BAME, when in actual fact, it might well be Asian. And it's often weaponised by white people, quite simply. And my thought and belief in using the name for the company, the company name, was that we are here to represent change and marginalized communities. And they fall within the acronym used ultimately. But what we absolutely intend to do is, and I think due to the fact that my background is in procurement, we're very data driven and data oriented. And, you know, we'll never report any stats or data under the acronym BAME, because we recognize that it doesn't tell us anything about different experiences within the sector. So it's where we arrived at, recognize it's hugely problematic. And I guess, you know, go on, sorry.
It's a tool, isn't it? And it's like a knife. You can use it to spread butter on a piece of toast, or you can use it to kill someone. It can be a murder weapon, or it can be a tool. And I think it's really what you intend to do that is the important thing. And I think, you know, both the mentorship and what you mentioned about the role models. I have a lot of students who do come from ethnic minority, Asians, Black students, and I struggle quite often to find, I know where the role models are, but they want to see them right there, especially, for example, when somebody wants to study for a PhD, you know, I want them to see those
Yeah,
from all the backgrounds, so I can point them.
yeah,
And I think they are there, but quite often somehow they're hidden. And I
yes.
think
Agree.
that's what we can do. We can actually unearth, if you like,
Exactly.
those great role models.
And you know what? Over these past 5 months, we have unearthed so many people. It's been amazing,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, just in terms of the amazing individuals that exist within hospitality that have previously been invisible.
I think also it's worth mentioning here that something that a lot of my non-ethnic minority colleagues forget, and I've seen myself being treated a little bit different. We leave it at that. But because the accent, the cultural background is different, and when you look at the percentage of Greeks in the UK is very small, and I've heard stories of a Russian colleague, and we're kind of perceived as we're invisible because we're perceived as he's just fine, he's just white. But actually in the workplace quite often you get a different treatment.
Yeah,
You don't get
yeah,
the opportunities that others get,
yeah,
and sometimes you hear go back to your country.
yeah, yeah,
And it does hurt, and it does
yeah.
affect your confidence sometimes. So
Oh,
so the
absolutely. Mm.
Bain Hospital is a great place, I think,
Mhm.
and I'm sold. The moment we started talking, I was sold about the good that it can do as an organization. But
Mhm.
how can either students or anyone else
Yeah,
interested be involved
yeah,
with Bain
yeah.
Hospitality?
I'd say the first thing is that we are a community of not only Black, Asian, and ethnic minorities, but also allies that want to champion change. So the easiest thing you can do to stay in the loop on our activity and our work is to subscribe to our newsletter. There's also an option on our website to join the community as well. And we basically, anyone that joins a community can be as active or as not as they choose. So we host events every month, and the events tend to be centered around different pockets of hospitality. So we've done wine, we've done Black History Month, we've done Diwali, and we have a whole calendar for next year, which is super exciting.
I've watched some of, not some, quite a few of the videos. And you got one of my favorite heroes.
Levi, Levi Reeds.
And Levi, I mean, it's a great interview actually. And if anybody's listening here, go to the Bain Hospitality website. You'll find the YouTube channel there, and you can put it on YouTube and the term,
Yeah,
and you'll hear a different Levi, because quite often the media, they showcase and they edit what they want to edit. But I think that's a very honest uh,
yes,
interview, which I enjoyed. Uh,
yeah,
and I think what's great about him as a role model, as a hero, is he brings this humanity.
yes,
It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, what age
yeah,
you are. What matters, especially in hospitality, in everything, but a bit more in
mhm,
hospitality, is your humanity and what you
yeah,
can bring to the table, and kindness.
yeah.
I think more and more people start realizing that kindness is is an asset.
It really is. Totally agree.
And when I watch those videos, I came to the realization that we kind of forget how much has become full on digital these days. I mean, do you
Yeah.
feel that there's a digital shift, and do you feel that it has affected your business in a good way or a bad way or a neutral way? What are your thoughts?
I think that I'll start by saying I absolutely prefer interactions in person. I'm an extrovert. I thrive on connections with people, conversation. Absolutely love it. And being able to connect with people and help and build community in person is amazing. But what has been really great actually during this time is being able to build a community fairly quickly,
Yeah.
because everyone has been at home mostly, or not necessarily occupied with a million and one things. And so we've built a real community, and I've forged some really amazing connections throughout this time,
Mm.
which has been a gift. It really has. And not only that, I've had the gift of time to be able to actually flesh out what the strategy is, how we intend to deliver it. And so, whilst it's been a really terrible time for many of us, not only health wise, but to our pockets, that there has been a gift given. And I really hope that people carry some of the reflections that they've taken into next year when life does revert back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think? It's a good place to ask about them. Is there anything positive that you feel emerged because of the current situation, specifically for hospitality, in your view?
I think that I've seen an awful lot of businesses who were previously competitors kind of banding together to bring awareness to the fact that everyone is suffering, whether that business or their employees. So there's definitely been, I think, a visible togetherness in terms of the sector. But what I would say is this, that, I've read a number of reports time and time again that both young people and people from BAME backgrounds are disproportionately affected by redundancy and job losses during this time. And so with that togetherness, for me, and this has always been the case throughout my career, people from BAME backgrounds always feel very invisible, whether it's celebration or whether it's a difficult time, So I think that, it's a really, really difficult time because people are trying to survive. But what I would say is this: throughout the past few months, I've been in touch with, many business leaders that have reached out to me who are these very same companies that are struggling to survive. But what they recognize is that they want the business to survive being a better version of what it was. And so even though it's an extremely difficult time, what is important has kind of floated to the top for businesses. And that, I think, has become very visible as well.
Okay, so it's crystallizing the important elements of the business and focusing on those. So I'm hoping we're looking at a new era of quality hospitality and quality in everything, no matter what.
Me too. Oh God, me too.
we'll keep on hoping for that.
I know, got everything crossed.
Yeah. So reaching near the end, and I want to hear a little bit of more of advice for our students, anybody listening. And you've done so much in your career, and I really admire you for what you're trying to do with your current company and projects. So what makes you productive? If you think of your most productive day, what are the key elements? You mentioned time a little bit. Is there anything else that you focus on and you try to?
Yeah. I think what was always been key for me actually throughout my life is variety. And, if you speak to anyone that works within the hospitality sector, irrespective of their job function, variety, I feel like, is the key common thread throughout hospitality, because there's a lot that's changeable. It can be very reactionary, but actually, variety for me is the spice of life. And so, I've always loved procurement within the sector I am in because it is so varied. I, as a procurement leader, often go to networking events where I'm meeting people that are buying oil and computers and electricity. I do buy electricity as well, though. But when you put it in a pot of champagne and wine and amazing meats and fruit and veg, and the list goes on and on and on, it really is like the best job ever, as far as being able to learn in real depth about something that you're interested in, being able to travel and see how they're produced, and then understand the commercial element and supply chain to ensure that the business that you work for has the best possible price and improves profitability. So for me, productivity all stems down to having variety, autonomy, and being able to really impact change.
You sound so passionate when you talk about this variety. Is it variety that inspires you?
It is actually, and it's one of the reasons why I run BAME in hospitality. I do procurement consulting. I'm a life coach as well. I've started knitting. No, I have, but that is me in a nutshell. I like to do different things, and yeah, I love it.
And I think that's that's a great advice on productivity in keeping it different. Also allows you to keep it balanced sometimes, because if you keep on pushing on the same direction, sometimes you do get tired, and
So true.
it can be overwhelming, especially when you don't feel like you're making progress. So that's great advice. And I think Einstein was, he was one of them that he would play the violin, and he was doing quite a lot of stuff. And and in his free time, he was a genius as well.
Exactly. No one's ever mentioned me in the same sentence of Einstein before. No, I agree.
See what I did there? So final question is, we've got students. They will be graduating next semester around the summer. There'll be students across universities in the country, further education colleges. And I have sensed a little bit of fear, and I try to motivate them. I try to keep them inspired and passionate about the industry. But I'll admit, sometimes I'm scared that we will lose so much great talent. So with that in mind, what advice do you have for the young people that will graduate this academic year, 2020-21?
Yeah, I would say this. Absolutely, it has been a really tough time for the sector in particular. But keep an open mind to what is possible, because I think you mentioned earlier that procurement within hospitality, it's not really a well-recognized function that exists within hospitality, but the amount of occupations that exist are so far and wide, so far and wide, and extend within leisure, within travel. I would say be clear on what you want and go and find it. And, what you seek, you will find, quite simply. I really believe that. I always use the analogy that, if I'm in a room, if you look for red, you'll find it, right? The color red. If you look for it, you'll find it. What you look for, you will find. And it applies to all parts of life. It really does.
I love this. I have the equivalent of when I talk to my students, I talk about luck. When I say, what is the one thing we cannot teach at university? And they go like, what? And spend some time. And it's actually luck. You cannot teach it. But what you can do, teach yourself, or hopefully people teach you as well, is this: creating the opportunities, creating the conditions for luck. Luck just doesn't happen. It needs conditions. Finding red doesn't happen unless you're looking for it.
Exactly.
I love the advice of, keep your mind open. And impossible is nothing. And that's what
I agree.
Excellent. Really, that's been fantastic. Thank you so much. I love your thought processes, and totally adore what you do. And I know we're going to be working in projects together in the future.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Lots of advice there for our students, and not only students, professionals as well. I hope we'll be listening in. Lorraine, you have been an absolute star. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Goodbye.
Bye. See you.